This is the story of a man who died with no name and a code no one ever cracked. Somerton Beach, 1948. A man was found propped against a seawall on an Australian beach, smartly dressed, no wallet, no identification, no name in any of his clothing. He had been watched for hours the evening before by at least 2 separate passers-by, who assumed he was sleeping. He was not sleeping. Tucked inside a hidden pocket sewn into the waistband of his trousers was a scrap of paper torn from the final page of a poetry book, bearing 2 words in Persian. Tamam shud. It is finished. The cause of his death has never been determined. For 74 years, neither had his name. The morning of December 1st, 1948, was a mild, early summer morning on the South Australian coast. Somerton Park Beach sits just south of Adelaide, the kind of place where the sea comes in flat and the light lies long across the sand, and the seawall runs in a pale concrete line between the beach and the promenade above. At 6:30, police were called to a body. A man lying with his head tilted back against the wall, his legs extended. One crossed over the other, as though he had simply chosen that spot to rest. He was well dressed, a double-breasted jacket, a tie, brown shoes polished to a shine. He looked, by every account, like a man of consequence. No one knew him. No one, in the weeks and months that followed, would come forward to say they did. The evening before, at least 2 couples had noticed him in exactly that position. Head back, quite still, one arm at his side, and had walked on. One witness reported seeing him raise his arm briefly and let it fall. Perhaps he was drunk. Perhaps he was watching the stars. The record does not say what they thought, only that they did not stop. By morning, he was cold. What the police found and failed to find was its own kind of argument. No wallet, no identification papers, no keys, no train ticket, no return stub, nothing with a name on it. The labels had been cut from every garment he wore, cut cleanly, deliberately, every single one. The only exception was a single thread of stitching in his collar, where a tailor's tag had been removed so recently the thread was still fresh. He carried a comb, a packet of juicy fruit gum, a box of Bryant and May matches with a different brand of cigarette inside it, and an unused second-class train ticket from Adelaide to Henley Beach. None of it told the police anything at all. The autopsy, conducted by pathologist John Cleland, produced findings that deepened rather than resolved the question of how he died. The man's organs showed congestion consistent with a rapid failure of the heart or nervous system. Cleland noted the presence of substances in the tissue consistent with cardiac glycosides, compounds like digitalis or ouabine, poisons that act on the heart and are, critically, almost undetectable once metabolized. The body showed no bruising, no signs of a struggle, no vomiting, no convulsions. The muscles of the heart were contracted in a way Cleland had not encountered before. He testified at the 1949 inquest that he would have found death by poison had he been required to make that finding. He was not required to make it. Cause of death was formally recorded as undetermined, and the inquest was adjourned without a finding. It has never been reopened. 6 weeks after the body was found, on January 14, 1949, railway staff at Adelaide Station opened an unclaimed suitcase that had been checked into left luggage on November 30th. The same day the man had been seen alive on the beach. Inside were clothing and personal items. Every label had been removed. 2 items bore a sewn-in name, T. Keane or Keane. No person of that name was ever connected to the case. Also inside the suitcase, a stiletto knife, a stenciling brush of the kind used in shipping and cargo work, and a pair of scissors. The suitcase told the same story the body told, which was no story at all, only the fact of erasure. Then, in the months after the inquest, a pathologist re-examining the clothing discovered something that had been overlooked. A small fob pocket sewn inside the waistband of the trousers, of the kind that had not been fashionable in decades. Inside it was a tightly rolled scrap of paper, no larger than a fingertip. The paper had been torn from a book. The printing on it read, Tamam Shud. Those two words, Persian for it is finished or it is ended, appear only on the final page of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. Police published the scrap. A man in Glenelg came forward with a book. The book was a 1941 New Zealand edition of the Rubaiyat, rare. The final page torn out along a line that matched the scrap precisely. It had been found on the back seat of a car parked near the beach the night the man was seen lying against the seawall. Inside the back cover were two things. The first was a telephone number. The second was 5 lines of capital letters, handwritten in pencil. The second line struck through. The letters did not form words in any known language. They have been examined by cryptographers, linguists, and intelligence agencies. They have never been deciphered. The phone number belonged to a woman named Jessica Thompson, known to those who cared about the case as Jestin, her nickname. She was a nurse, 27 years old in 1948, living in a flat approximately 400 meters from the seawall where the man was found. When police contacted her, she told them she had once given a copy of the Rubaiyat to a man named Alf Boxall, a wartime acquaintance. Police tracked Boxall down. He was alive, and his copy of the Rubaiyat was intact, its final page untorn. The lead was closed. Thompson was shown the plaster cast of the dead man's face, made by sculptor Paul Lawson in June 1949 from a death mask. She said she did not recognize him. Her reaction, by the account of the police officer present, was one of considerable distress. She did not elaborate. She said nothing further. Thompson lived until 2007. She never spoke publicly about the Somerton Man. Her daughter later told investigators that Thompson had once said, in private, that she knew exactly who the man was, but would not say. The reason for that silence died with her. There is one more thing the record preserves. Jessica Thompson had a son named Robin, born in 1947. An amateur investigator who examined the plaster death mask noted that Robin Thompson and the Somerton Man shared an unusual physical trait, hypodontia, the bilateral absence of lateral incisors, a condition occurring in roughly 2% of the population. They also shared an uncommon ear shape. The record does not say what this means. It cannot say. In 2021, the remains of the Somerton Man were exhumed. DNA was extracted from hair strands that had been embedded, by chance, in the plaster of Paul Lawson's death mask when it was made in June 1949. Genetic genealogist Colleen Fitzpatrick and Professor Derek Abbott of the University of Adelaide built a family tree of approximately 4,000 people from the GED Match database and traced a match. In July 2022, they announced that the Somerton Man was almost certainly Carl Webb, an electrical engineer and instrument maker born in Footscray, Melbourne, on November 16, 1905. He'd been married. He had, apparently, a life. His name had been there all along, in the archive, waiting to be extracted from a lock of hair pressed by accident into plaster. South Australia police have not officially confirmed the identification. They have made no public statement on the matter. The finding has not been adopted by any coronial process. Carl Webb, if he is the Somerton Man, remains, in the legal record, an unknown male. And the identification, when it came, did not answer the question of how he died, or why his labels were cut, or who sent him to that beach, or what the cipher means, or what Jessica Thompson knew and chose not to say. It answered only the narrowest question: what was his name? While leaving intact the architecture of everything that matters. The 5 lines of letters on the back cover of the Rubaiyat are still there. They have been digitized, published, and distributed to every codebreaker who has ever asked for them. No one has produced a solution that has withstood scrutiny. The second line is struck through, as though whoever wrote it made an error and began again. Whether that is what happened, the record does not say. Somewhere in the probate records of Melbourne, there is a marriage certificate bearing the name Carl Webb. There is, or was, a woman who was his wife, and a life that preceded the beach at Somerton by 43 years. What brought him there? What he intended? What he knew about himself in those last hours? Whether he chose that seawall or was brought to it? None of that is in the record. The record ends with a man lying still in the early morning light, the sea a few meters away, a scrap of paper rolled tight in a pocket no one thought to look in for months, 2 words on it that mean it is finished, and the question of who finished it and how and why still open and likely to remain so. If this one got under your skin, subscribe. Conspiracy Comix cracks open a new mystery every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Don't read the next one alone.